What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of The Rundown, presented by Dick's Sporting Goods. The Rapids disappoint in LA, but Paxten Aaronson makes his Rapids debut. Got Sporting Kansas City now on the horizon for the Rapids this weekend. So that and much more on the Colorado Rapids podcast. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Colorado Rapids podcast, and this week's edition of The Rundown, presented by Dick's Sporting Goods. I am your host, Mike Rovolo, alongside my good friend and resident Rapids legend, Drew Moore. Drewby, how we doing on this Monday morning, man?
I'm doing all right. I got to go with the team to LA.
Yeah?
So always fun to go to Southern California. The result was not great, obviously. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yep.
But it was warm there. It was hot. I feel like for this time of year, even though it's still summer, but not as hot as it has been here. But some guys, especially from the staff, got to spend some time on the beach and everything,
nice. Yeah.
which was nice. It cooled off a little bit at night. The unified team was with us, so it's always fun.
Nice, man.
Yeah,
that's lovely. Yeah,
it's nice to see their smiling faces and just the way they lift everybody's spirit. Was awesome. So a good weekend, but a weekend where hopefully we learned a lot and we can move past and look to build towards this coming weekend's game against Sporting Kansas City and try to go get 3 points there.
Yeah, a decent amount to look back at from this past weekend, a decent amount to look ahead to, as you mentioned, with Sporting Kansas City. But before we get into any of that, into kind of the meat of the show, if you will, so as the transfer window closed for MLS this past Thursday, the Rapids made, I would say, a pretty big move, Drew, here in getting their new number 10 in Paxten Aaronson. So Paxten Aaronson, so for folks who have not heard of Paxten Aaronson, if you hadn't already.
Come out from the rock you've been under.
Yes. So he's a 21-year-old midfielder that we here at the Rapids got from Eintracht Frankfurt in Germany. And he spent his last season on loan at FC Utrecht in the Netherlands, where he had 9 goals and 5 assists. He's formerly of the Philadelphia Union Academy. So this is a guy, obviously, Drew, that's very familiar with MLS, played with the first team with Philly as well. So very familiar with what MLS is. This is nothing new to him. In terms of his accolades and involvement with the U.S. men's national team already at such a young age, Drew, he was involved with the U.S. men's national team that won the 2023-2024 CONCACAF Nations League, was a part of the Olympic team that went to Paris last year in 2024, and was a part of this most recent Gold Cup roster in 2025 that was a finalist but lost in that final against Mexico. And he's a record signing for the player for the Rapids, Drew, and will obviously be a designated player for this Rapids side. Was signed to a 5-year contract, so it's a long-term commitment that both the club and Paxten have made together to keep him here for that long. So going through all those accolades and kind of providing that sort of primer for folks who haven't heard of Paxten before, despite having been in the league already and with Philly at a much younger age, Drew, what do you make of the signing, or what sort of impact do you see Paxten making for the Rapids?
I'm really excited. I think, you see the resume, the pedigree that he has. Obviously, I'm sure people know about his older brother, Brendan, at Leeds United. Even at a younger age, 21 years old, like Paxten has been in a high-level professional environment for several years now. And the MLS experience, I think, is important as well, right? It's not like he's unfamiliar with all the demands and differences that you get in MLS. His time in Europe has been successful. And having seen him now for a couple of days, he has that a little bit of an aura about him, that he's ready to come in, he's ready to dig in and go to work. He talks about wanting to, play both sides of the ball. He came in the Galaxy game, which we're going to see here in a minute. But even in just his first training session, there's no hesitation with him when he gets on the ball. He takes up really good spots, kind of in that red zone between the midfielders and the defenders, where it's hard to keep track of him. He gets on the ball. He dribbles at people. He's got great passing ability. He can score goals. I think Rapids fans should be really excited for what Paxten Aaronson is going to bring this side. I know I am. I know the players are. And even in just a couple of days, he's made a very good first impression with myself and with the players and staff.
Yeah, a whirlwind few days, I'd imagine, for him, between like flying over from Germany and coming over here, getting settled. going through everything that's involved, and that is a transfer, right, of a player from one club to the next, and then from there hopping on a plane to LA to be with the group for the match that we're going to get into here between the Rapids and the Galaxy. But yeah, man, I'm with you. Like this is an incredibly exciting signing, and you know, we'll get a little bit into it as we go through the Galaxy highlights of some moments that we noticed when we were watching the match. You were boots on the ground there because you were on the radio call with Cape, and I was back home watching, but just the little bit I'd seen between his one training session on Friday before flying out to LA and then in the game itself, there's a lot to look forward to with Paxten. I'll say that much.
And I think he fits the system well. Again, with that directness, with that hunger to always try to create something, to not hesitate to get from defending to attacking and trying to score goals as quickly as possible. He's quick, he's shifty, he's fast. And you can just tell even for 21, which is not super young anymore, right, in the professional ranks these days, but he's got a confidence about him, and I've kind of been here, done that. Now he still has a lot to prove, I'm sure. He will say that, but I really like the first couple of days that we've seen of him.
Yeah, man. I think Rapids fans will be quickly endeared to him. So, I mean, the first opportunity I would say that folks would get to see him in person here at Dick's Sporting Goods Park would be the Houston match, if I'm thinking about that correctly in terms of the schedule after that off weekend.
Right, still a couple weeks.
That the Rapids, so it'll still be a minute before Rapids fans can see Paxten in the flesh. But at least for now, hopefully they can appreciate him from a distance and see what he's capable of doing. Because I think we'll talk about it a little bit here once we go through the highlights. Speaking of which, let's go through the highlights between the Galaxy and the Rapids. So this is the second matchup between the two sides, Drew. This time in LA in Dignity Health Sports Park. The Rapids got the better of the Galaxy with a 2-0 win earlier in the season. We would see how this would go down this past Saturday at Dignity Health Sports Park. The Galaxy, Drew, they were getting things going to start off this match. 6th, 7th minute with a goal from Harbour Miller.
Yeah, it's a poor start, and Harbour Miller is the one that gets fouled in the middle of the field there. And gets up and shows a bit of determination. And these cutback crosses, it's going to be a bit of a theme today for the Rapids, how we can defend them a little bit better, because we've conceded a few too many goals from crosses, from wide areas, especially these cutbacks, and Harbour Miller in the right spot and able to put it away.
And then carrying on a little bit later, Drew, that the Galaxy would just kind of follow through and find the second with Elijah Widener getting that goal.
And this is just too passive. And we talked about it on the Moranchuk goal last weekend against Atlanta. Winder's he's able to go too far, untouched. Nobody puts a body on him. Nobody puts a leg through him. And by the time they get into our penalty area, it's, you give players time and space, and they're going to punish you. And credit to Winder for the finish. It's another good ball from Yamane.
And then here, Drew, this is something that everybody was looking forward to, with Paxten Aaronson making his Rapids debut, coming off the bench in the second half. And then here, Drew, with the Galaxy, they just carried on with the momentum that they had really throughout the match. And Gabriel Peck, after coming off the bench, gets the third for Galaxy.
Well, let's talk about Paxten Aaronson then straight away. And the glimpse that we saw of him, the 25, 30 minutes was a lot of positive play. And here he is. Here's his directness and his confidence to get forward, create opportunities. Sam Bassett just goes wide there. But look at the positions he takes up, right? It's just always in the half spaces between defenders, horizontally and vertically. Just hits the post here. And with the spin of this ball, I'm surprised it doesn't hit the post and go in. But it was only 25 or 30 minutes, and it was in a tough result. And unfortunately, Hoffa and Alex Harris kind of get it, mixed up there. But it was only 25, 30-minute glimpse, but we saw a lot of good positive play from Paxten Aaronson, in those moments. Even in a tough result, we saw what he's capable of, the positions that he takes up, and the ability that he has. So really excited with his debut.
Yeah, that makes two of us, Drew. So real quick, let's go through the match stats here just to see how statistically everything played out between the two sides, Drew. So Galaxy had 17 shots on the night versus the 12 that the Rapids had. 5 shots on goal for the Galaxy versus 1 for the Rapids. 6 corners apiece for either side. And then in terms of possession, the Galaxy had 51.2% of the possession versus the 48.8% that the Rapids had on the night, which is usually a little higher than I think the Rapids are accustomed to. So I would say just straight into it, Drew, your general thoughts of that match between the Galaxy and the Rapids on the night.
I'm not going to get too nitty gritty about, tactics and what went what went wrong. But for me, it's another reminder that everybody's playing for something this time of year. This was a heavily rotated Galaxy squad. Obviously they have Leagues Cup semifinals this coming Wednesday night. These players, Harbor Miller, Tucker Lepley, and Elijah Winder. These guys have plenty to play for. They're trying to get in the squad, right? They want to be a part of the Leagues Cup semifinal. They want to be a part of LA Galaxy moving forward the rest of this season, next season. Everybody has something to play for this time of year. And it's just a reminder that if you're not at your best or close to it, you're not going to win many games in this league, And so the start of the match was poor. We looked a little bit sluggish and just out of sync, and I don't know if you can point to one or two or three things, to be the reason for that, whatever it is. But for me, general thoughts is this is a reminder that we need to bring our stuff, or at least as close to our stuff as we possibly can if we want to, go on a little run of form here before we are trying to qualify for the playoffs. But then if we do, can we hit some good form going into the playoffs? If the one nitty-gritty point would be, if teams are going to sit a little bit deeper than us, we concede early, Galaxy start to, defend a little bit deeper, we have to find a way through. We have to be patient. We have to, play with tempo and still with energy, and find a way through. But yeah, it's a difficult night in LA, and something that, there were some good reminders there that, there's plenty to play for, not just for us, but every team we're going to see from here on out.
Yeah, it's just that time of year, Drew, where, as you mentioned, that everybody, be it as a collective or individually, is playing for something, be it contracts or for earning minutes for later this season or for next season even, right? Or for, as in the Rapids case, they're looking for a playoff spot, and considering where they are, they're flirting with that playoff line right now. So every point, every result matters from here on out. Not that it doesn't throughout the season, but it's even more critical more than ever in this time of year. So obviously it was a disappointing night. Chris Armas, Reggie Cannon post-game in their press conferences and mentioned that, they just didn't bring their good stuff on the night. And it is what it is. Like, that's one of those where you kind of a little bit of like quickly like throw in the bin to kind of not dwell on it too much, but don't get too low on the results either. So keeping in mind that you do have another match coming up at a difficult place to play. That is Children's Mercy Park. Against Sporting Kansas City, right? That's another difficult place to play, despite Kansas City being in the difficult position that they've been in throughout the season. So that, again, one of those where you toss in the bin, but don't get too low on it,
right? Because
there's still so much to play for the rest of the season. If we want to flip it to the positives, Drew, of what we had to look forward to on the night was a few debuts. So Rafael Santos, who the Rapids had gotten from Orlando City, was able to make his debut. Dauda Amadou, who had typically been playing with the Rapids 2 side, very involved with Rapids 2, finally earns his debut with the first team. And then, of course, that we had shown in the highlights was Paxten Aaronson, the new number 10 for the Colorado Rapids. And as you'd kind of been mentioning with Paxten in particular, Drew, like I really liked what I saw from Paxten and just how the positions he was taking up, his involvement on both sides of the ball. The one thing that, even though he had, the one chance on goal that hit the post and some of the moments he was kind of creating himself, the one that kind of stuck out to me a little bit was his first involvement when he came off the bench, was when he got stuck in and fouled Edwin Cerrillo.
Yep.
But he fouled him. Why are you so hyped up about that? It's not the foul necessarily. It's the fact that his first involvement was him getting stuck in and basically telling Edwin Cerrillo, if you're going to be on the ball, best believe I'm going to be right there, and you better either release it or I'm going to take it from you. So that's where we saw what Paxten could do on the ball, right? With the chance that he created, with hitting the post, some of the distribution that he even showed from centrally, the central position that he took up. But just the way he defended, the way he can do the counter press. Like if the Rapids lose the ball, he's ready to go and get on the Galaxy or whoever, the Galaxy in this case, right? I really, really like what I see from Paxten, and not just offensively, but defensively as well, Drew, which that's what really excites me about him and what he can do, and how perfectly he fits into this Chris Armas system.
Of course, and I think it could have been a yellow card too, but it was his first involvement, and it shows his teammates, I'm going to do some of the dirty, I've got number 10 on the back of my jersey, but I'm going to get stuck in. I'm going to help you guys out defensively. And I thought, Rafa Santos showed a lot of what he can bring as well. The positivity, great left foot. He's going to be direct. He's going to try to get crosses into the box. He's got a good range of passing, and he's got some athleticism too. He's got some size, he's got some pace, he's got some strength. Again, another positive sign and even a tough result. And Dauda Amadou, so excited for him because he spent a lot of time with the twos, been a big part of that squad, especially in their run to the conference finals back in 2023. He trains, sometimes regularly with the first team, so the players are familiar with him. And I thought he came on and even in a short time showed glimpses of a lot of positivity. He gets around the field, he gets stuck in. He's got a good range of passing as well. So excited for our debutants there. We do want to move beyond that, that match, but some good positivity from new faces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always nice to see the new faces and then having a little bit of an impact on the. Yeah, Dowd, I really like that. One, the opportunity to finally feature for the first team, and two, his play looked positive overall. So it was nice to see that finally get that opportunity and kind of take advantage of it. Really, despite the circumstances of that match being a 2-0, 3-0 at the time when he subbed on. So, and then two Hafas, like I think I'd mentioned this before, we're gonna have to figure out how we differentiate between Hafa Santos and Hafa Navajo, but we'll see. We'll leave it to the coaching staff and the players to figure that out, and we'll go from there. So, nice to see our three new debutants for the Colorado Rapids, and looking forward to what how they can really contribute to this group for the rest of the season. As we mentioned, Drew, over and over again, critical part of the season where every point matters, every result matters as the Rapids are trying to find a playoff spot. And then one little thing that we also had of note from there is Rob Holding. So just kind of it'd been a little bit in a state of limbo for Rob in terms of he had signed for the club but could not feature or train just because of the issue with the visa not being available just yet. But that has changed, so his visa has been available. And so he was available for selection. He did not feature on Saturday, but he was available for selection. So from here on out, he will be available to play should the Rapids coaching staff call on him to start or to come off the bench, whatever the situation may be. So Rob Holding, as of last Saturday against the Galaxy, is available to the Rapids, and excited to see what he's going to bring too, because that's like we talked about him before, Drew, on the show, that this is a guy with a lot of experience, and quite the resume, and it never hurts to have someone like that on your roster. Of
course, excited to see Rob, and he's already brought, because he's been in for a couple weeks now, although only really been able to train with the team for a few days, but it's amazing what bringing in some new faces that have big personalities can do just for a training session, and they were all involved on Friday. Hafa Santos, Rob Holding, and Paxten Aaronson, and to see the personalities that they bring, it just seemed like, and I had to step in a little bit, so I kind of got firsthand experience. It just seemed like the level raised, the energy raised, everything was just, it's coming down to that time, and I love that the new faces are bringing the energy and bringing the positivity, because that can only spell good things for training through the week to prepare for big matches on the weekends.
Yep. No, that's great to hear. And that's what you always want from your new signings, regardless of whether Rob Holding comes from an Arsenal, Paxten Aaronson from Eintracht Frankfurt, Hafa Santos who comes from within the league. You always want to make sure that training is up to par. So that, like, typically the way I would see a lot of players kind of see it is like try to make training harder than the matches, so that way when you go into the matches, you're just flying and you know exactly what you're doing as a group. So so nice to hear that, since you're directly involved with the sessions. You still get it. You definitely hold your own. I will say that, Drew. So all right, that'll do it, I think, for that recap of the Galaxy Rapids match, right? But again, there's some positives. Again, we got to see some new faces there, which was nice to see. And of course, as we mentioned off the top of the show, Special Olympics, our Rapids Unified side played after that match as well. So now this is a segment we hadn't done in a while, Drew.
Oh, we're bringing it back.
Around MLS.
You guys wanted it back. We listened.
Around MLS. Granted, we would always have jam-packed shows these past few weeks with Leagues Cup, with transfer window, all sorts of stuff going on. But now we're back to Around MLS, because it's always nice to keep tabs on what's going on around the league.
Especially with a lot of new faces and new places.
Yes.
Which is kind of what the theme of It Looks Like This Around the MLS is.
A little bit.
A little teaser there.
Little bit. So Drew teeing it up a little bit there. So for the Rapids, as it pertains to them, they're currently 7th in the Western Conference, Drew. So again, as we mentioned,
that's the other thing that we didn't really talk about. We started the night in 7th, had a bad result. Almost all the other results went our way, so we remain in 7th. So we've been given a little bit of a bone on the weekend, and while we didn't take advantage of it ourselves, again, like let's take advantage of it this coming weekend
Yes.
because maybe we can separate ourselves a little bit further from some of these teams chasing us, just right behind us on our heels.
Yeah. So that was an important thing to note. There is just that other results elsewhere did favor the Rapids, but it comes down to the Rapids just taking care of their own business,
sure.
right? Like that's what you want to do, and hopefully everything kind of plays out more often than not in your favor, with other results kind of playing in your favor. But again, we shall see. And as we mentioned before, that the transfer window that's closed for MLS as of last Thursday. So we're in the home stretch now, Drew. This is it. Like whatever the roster that you have now, this is what you're going to finish the season with. And as you mentioned, whatever you're fighting for, whether it's a contract for minutes or for a playoff spot, like every single player, every single team has something to fight for in this league, regardless of where they are in the table.
For sure.
So it's do or die with it's a bunch of finals basically you're playing, honestly, for the rest of the season. So go in terms of around MLS, looking at some matches that we wanted to feature here from this over the weekend. Let's start with Dallas taking on LAFC. That was a 1-1 draw, and Drew Son Heung-min, that was a hell of a first goal that he scored for LAFC.
Man.
I'll tell you what.
Oh man, showing his quality, a free kick, like pick it out of the net. It was fantastic, and he's been really good for them. And it finished 1-1, 2 early goals, but LA absolutely peppered FC Dallas. Pretty much the rest of that match weren't able to find the breakthrough, but LA again, they're one of those teams that they always have the star power. Now Son is their star man, and he showed his quality with that free kick. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you go watch it. And they have several games to make up to LAFC, so I expect them to I think most people expect them to maybe slowly climb the table and put themselves in an even better spot. And we have them on decision day. So that's something to look forward to, certainly. But yeah, what I take away from that game is Son is quality.
That's really the most you can't take away from that. You mentioned that, LAFC, the last that we have him on decision day. The last time we had him on decision day, Drew,
yeah.
You remember that day?
Yeah, I do.
2021?
2021. 5-2 we won.
Could have been more.
It could have been, much
more, I would say. That was a special day, Drew. Like that's one of those that just lives. It's going to live there forever in my head. Like, because it was a very, very, very special moment.
Yeah.
But we'll carry on because that's reminiscent too hard there. So the next match we wanted to look at was RSL versus Minnesota. RSL. This is it's been a bit of a struggle this year, Drew. Granted, they've been missing a couple guys, I think, for this match. Diego Luna being one of them, due to suspension, if I'm not mistaken. So RSL lose 3-1 on the night against Minnesota at home. Victor Olatunji, the Nigerian forward that they had signed in this past transfer window, he got his first goal for RSL. And then DeAndre Yedlin, who they acquired from FC Cincinnati, he made his debut for the side. What did you see in that match, Drew?
I didn't get to see much of the match. I had it on before our game, just in the booth there. But anytime we talk about RSL, it's like how far away until the next match against them, and they've got some new faces in, and it has been a little bit of a struggle for them recently. But this is what the transfer window is for, and so they bring in Olatunji, they bring in DeAndre Yedlin. We don't know much about the Nigerian forward, but he looks an exciting player. Scored the goal for RSL at the weekend. We know what DeAndre Yedlin can bring, from his position, and so we'll have to see how the next couple games go for them. But they're always a team that they're ready to play when Rapids are on the other side, and they're right behind us in the table. And so we will kind of be scoreboard watching what they do, even though they have been struggling. Minnesota continue to just win games by scoring on set pieces and in transitions, and that's what they did at the weekend. Yeah,
Minnesota doing what they do best. Found themselves again in their form. And then RSL, Rocky Mountain Cup, that matchup, that's right before decision day, the week before. So for the Rapids have a very, very important last couple weeks of the regular season ahead. But before then, just worry about the match in front of you. And then the last one that we wanted to look at here, Drew, was Vancouver Whitecaps versus St. Louis. This was wild. This was kind of a wild, like off the hinges sort of match with a 3-2 Vancouver home win, but it wasn't easy. It wasn't straightforward. So they were able to get two PK goals along the way. And Thomas Muller, the legendary German, 90 plus 14 in the 104th minute that he scores the winner for the Vancouver Whitecaps.
The final whistle just actually sounded for that game.
I think so. It sounds like it. That's what I could have sworn I heard. So yeah, Drew, that was a wild one, man.
Yeah, and it's St. Louis. I feel like they're a part of a lot of wild games, and I think they're one of those teams that they've dropped a lot of points from winning positions, but Thomas Muller, he's in MLS. And Vancouver's a team we haven't really talked about much, even though we haven't done around MLS in a while. But they're still right there flirting with, top of the West and in it, for the Supporter Shield as well. They've been beat up, as you would expect from the heavy schedule they've had this year and the international players that they've had. But found a way, Thomas Muller. You love when a player like him comes in and shows the passion and intensity after he scored the goal to see what it meant to him, right? Spent his entire career at Bayern Munich, but comes to a new team, a new place, a new league, a new country, and still shows what scoring goals and winning games means to him. I thought that was really cool. But yeah, a wild game, another wild one.
Yeah, just to speak to that, Drew. Yeah, just from simply observing. I'm not sitting here like I'm talking to Thomas Muller and have him on speed dial or something, right? That's not the case. But like just by watching him and seeing how he plays and how he celebrated that goal with the group, for me, it's like he's not here on vacation. He's here because he's taking things very, very, very seriously. He wants to go and just win. I mean, he's used to it, but he wants to carry that on now with the Vancouver Whitecaps and kind of build his own legacy here in MLS.
Exactly.
So that's really exciting to see that we get to see a quality player like that in this league who's taking it incredibly seriously because he's as ambitious as it gets, and we've seen where that ambition can take him.
And Son was the same way. He celebrated his goal. His teammates went out. And he's always got a big smile on his face, which is so cool to see, in our stadiums, in our country. That was fun. That was a fun little round of MLS. Thanks for letting us bring that back, Rich.
Yes, it'd been a minute. So thanks to production for Rich and Miles for putting that in there because it'd been a while. Because again, it's always nice to be in tune with what's going on around the league and just kind of get out of our own little bubble every once in a while.
Yeah.
But I prefer pit stock if
then let's get back to it.
So speaking of which, so we have to look ahead now to that matchup that we got coming up this weekend, Drew, which is Sporting Kansas City versus the Colorado Rapids. This is the second time the two sides will face each other after Sporting Kansas City got the better of the Rapids here on the 4th of July. They ruined our 4th of July. Yes, they most certainly did. It was a 2-1 win for Sporting Kansas City here back on the 4th of July. Now this matchup between Sporting Kansas City and the Colorado Rapids this Saturday, that's going to be August 30th at 6:30 p.m. Mountain Time at Children's Mercy Park. Of course, you can catch that match on MLS Season Pass on Apple TV. Looking at SKC, Drew, we had kind of mentioned it a little bit before that they've been under it this season. It's been a tough year, particularly when you let go of your long time, I would say, kind of legendary head coach in Peter Vermees, just because things were not coming together and everything kind of came to a head where ownership and other folks decided that it was time for him to kind of part ways with the club. And then as of late, in terms of the last few matches that they've had, so they're winless in 6, Drew. So they're 0-5-1 in their last 6 matches. The last 3 they've lost. So the last 3 having been a 2-0 loss versus San Diego, 3-1 loss at Orlando. And then just last night on Sunday Night Soccer was a 5-2 loss at Seattle.
Tough schedule.
For anybody. Regardless of who's playing those teams, that's a very, very tough schedule to kind of run up against, especially when you have to go to a place like Orlando or go to a place like Seattle. It's been a rough going for Sporting Kansas City as of late, as it hadn't been throughout this 2025 season for them. In terms of team comparison, Drews, let's see kind of how these two the Rapids and Sporting Kansas City kind of compare. So the Rapids, they have a 10-12-6 record versus Sporting Kansas City, where they have a 6-15-6 record. On points, the Rapids have 36 points on the season. Sporting Kansas City has 24. Goals, Colorado has scored 36 versus 39 that Sporting Kansas City have scored. Goals against, 44 conceded by Colorado, 55 conceded by Sporting Kansas City. And then average possession, 43.7% for Colorado, and then 46.9% average possession for Sporting Kansas City. As I mentioned just a bit earlier, Drew, that Sporting Kansas City got the better of the Rapids with a 2-1 win on 4th of July here in Dick's Sporting Goods Park. There's an early Joveljic goal in the 4th minute, and then early in the second half, Eric Tommy got that goal early on in the second half. And which this is something I was actually not aware of. He hasn't played since that match, which for when you're missing a player like that, a good player like that, like an Eric Tommy, it's gonna kind of influence how the team's gonna carry on with their form and kind of just in general, really, Drew. So that was kind of surprising to me that he hadn't played since 4th of July. Yeah. So a big piece for Sporting Kansas City, missing there for quite a while. And then the one goal that the Rapids got on that night against Sporting Kansas City on 4th of July was the Hafa Navajo PK. In terms of transfers with Sporting Kansas City, as you can imagine, they not much activity. Just the one loan of Alan Montes from Club Necaxa. Just I think there's the other things they need to figure out before they kind of really kind of solidify the roster. So there's plenty of things to worry about. So very minimal movement on their part in the transfer market, just because of other priorities they have before they can focus on the roster. So it's just been a difficult year for Sporting Kansas City, Drew, which is very strange to say considering how often we would see the Sporting Kansas City side at least be hosting playoff games, not just making the playoffs, but hosting playoff games under Peter Vermees, because they're just a good, like, dangerous,
always
difficult side.
Always in it.
Always, man. It didn't matter who they would play against or where they would play. Like that's the Sporting Kansas City I think of. So this is a very different one from what we've seen from like the past 10, 15 years under Peter Vermees. So speaking to this matchup, Drew, that we have between the Rapids, Sporting Kansas City at Children's Mercy Park. This is a Sporting Kansas City side that, despite the season that they're having, they have dangerous players, man. I'd mentioned Eric Tommy, who we don't know what his availability will look like for this match on Saturday, but there's other pieces like a Dejan Jovalic, amongst other guys that I can't think of right now. Mason Toy, who scored on the weekend as well at Seattle. Still dangerous pieces in there, right? So what have you made of Sporting Kansas City this season, despite their struggles, man?
Well, they've had struggles, but they still have good players, and Eric Tommy being out has obviously affected them big time, But they still have Daniel Shalawi and Shapi Suleimanov, who they brought over. Manu Garcia has missed a little bit of time, and so we might not see him. They've kind of rotated more into a 4-4-2 when we're used to kind of seeing them in a 4-3-3. So they've made changes there as well. Basong has been playing a lot in the middle of the field. Kyrie Shelton continues to be played as a right back, and so it's a very different Sporting Kansas City side. That being said, let me continue to go back to the theme that I've been talking about for the last couple of weeks. These games are just different. These games mean more to people, and I'll try to kind of encapsulate why these games feel a little bit more important than the March, April, May, even though it's obvious that they all count for the same amount of points, but the pressure starts to build a little bit more, right? Because what do we continue to talk about is the push for the playoffs, getting into the playoffs. Can we get a home game? The talk starts to pick up, and so every moment feels like a little bit more pressure, right? And you have to remain in the moment. You have to remain who you are and do what you do. And maybe we got out of that a little bit in LA this last weekend when the pressure was a little bit more because of the time of year that we're now playing in, and it'll be the exact same when we go to Sporting Kansas City. They're not mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, but they have a lot that has to go their way if they're going to make the playoffs, right? And so, they're playing for something a little different, but they're still playing for something regardless of who's on the field, and so that pressure can sometimes make you think weird things and decide to do things that you usually wouldn't, and you can't let it happen. And so another opportunity again to deal with that pressure and try to get 3 points against a struggling side.
Yeah. And I think part of it is the pressure, right? Whether it's like a little bit more or even a little bit less, right? I feel like maybe Sporting Kansas City, their players might feel a little bit less pressure considering they feel like right now they're in a position where it's, as you said, it'll be difficult to make the playoffs. So maybe there's a little more liberty that they can kind of play with, right?
Freedom,
that can be very dangerous to play against, right?
I feel like that was the Galaxy a little bit.
Yeah. So at least, if anything, the Rapids have a very fresh reminder of what that can look like if they don't kind of get stuck in and get themselves into the game early on. We saw it against the Galaxy, and again, the fresh example there, so that kind of carry that experience with them into Sporting Kansas City, so it doesn't happen again, right? So you'd listed quite a few guys on Sporting Kansas City, as we said, right? Despite their struggles this season, they're still good players, man. Who's one guy in Sporting Kansas City you're going to keep an eye on out for this matchup?
There's still somebody, and Sporting still score a lot of goals, right? 39 goals on the season, and there's one of them that scored 14, and that's Dejan Jovalic. And, even on a team that, has really struggled, he's got 14 goals and a couple of assists, and he's somebody for me that is still a really good number 9 that does a little bit of everything, right? He can drop into the midfield and create a little bit. He can hold the ball up. He can be a strong target forward, but he comes alive in the penalty area. And when Kansas City get into dangerous spots, crossing positions, key passing positions, this is when he comes alive and, he scores on rebounds, he scores on through balls, he scores headers, he scores penalties, which he can earn. I still think Jovalic will occupy the Rapids center backs with his movements and just his presence. And they need to keep an eye on him because Kansas City are a team that will get the ball wide and cross and will try to find him when he's in the penalty area.
Yeah. For context, when Joveljic was with the Galaxy last season, he scored 15 goals. You just mentioned that he has 14
Yeah.
on a struggling side. Let that speak for itself, man. Like the fact that he's on a team that is Kansas City right now, they find themselves where they are right now, and he's still scoring at the clip that he is. He's just a good forward, period, in this league. So, yeah, so I think that's a very good choice in terms of who the Rapids will need to keep tabs on the Sporting Kansas City side of things. On the flip side,
let's hear it.
Who I want to
come on now.
Who I want to kind of keep an eye on for sure on the Rapid side of things, Drew, is going to be Paxten Aaronson.
Yep.
So for the record, like it's not like I'm getting any lineups or anything from the coaching staff or know what the lineup is going to be going into Saturday, right? But having said that, though, like just because he had featured off the bench against the Galaxy after just one training session and just having joined the team, you'd imagine with a full week of training, feeling a bit more settled in with the group and understanding what the expectations would be out of him. I feel like Paxten, whether it's off the bench or even if he were to start on Saturday at Sporting Kansas City, Drew, we saw what he did against Galaxy, the little bit of involvement he was able to have off the bench. If you could see that again, if he comes off the bench or if he does that from the start, kind of help with the rest of the group kind of set the tone in terms of what he's doing on either side of the ball, right? Whether he's attacking, putting other players in good positions, finding himself in good spaces for goal scoring opportunities. And then on the flip side, you know, the counter press or the high press, contributing to that high press that we know this Rapid side likes to do under Chris Armas. To have someone like that with already how influential we saw he can be, I'm gonna keep my full attention on Paxten because again, well, obviously he's the big signing, right? But it's not just because of that; it's just because of what we had seen. We have a sample size now based off, albeit small. We had seen what he done against the Galaxy when he came off the bench, and he did influence the Rapids in terms of what he did when he came off the bench. So I'm definitely keeping tabs on Paxten to hopefully make his first start. But either way, I'd imagine he would feature against Sporting Kansas City on Saturday, and again have an influence on the group and something that we hope to see for the rest of the season as well. But I'm going to be keeping tabs on Paxten and hopefully featuring a little bit more this Saturday against Sporting Kansas City.
I think we all will. He's somebody that's going to step in and shoulder a lot of the load attacking wise, wants to, embraces that role. Sporting Kansas City is another opportunity for him to do that. Yep. And he's got a full week. He'll have a full week of training under his belt as well, which is good.
Yeah, just to feel settled, man. Yeah, because when he came in, it was just the chaos of like flying in from Germany and try to finalize the negotiations and the contract and all that, and then immediately jump into a session, one session before you fly out to LA with the group, and then come off the bench and play like it. If you think about it from Paxton's perspective, it's been pretty chaotic, just a wild whirlwind few days. So. Drew, what it's like in terms of like trying to like get settled, especially if you have family, and there's so many things that go into just you featuring for a brand new team, when you travel or if you're here at home, like there's so many other factors that come into it in terms of someone trying to move from one club to the next. So I mean, credit to Paxten for just kind of rolling with it, but now like as you said, he'll be here now, full week of training here with the group before they travel to Kansas City for the weekend. So let's go a little bit more bigger picture, Drew, in terms of we chose individual players that we're keeping tabs on either side of this matchup. In terms of keys to the match, as we typically do towards the end of the segment here, what is a key to the match that you have for the Rapids to make sure that they can get a result out of Sporting Kansas City?
Yeah, I talked about it during the Galaxy highlights. Sometimes I choose a broader, kind of more intangible theme. For me, the key is going to be dealing with crosses. Three of our last 5 goals have come from that we've conceded. Have come from crossing positions, right? The first 2 against LA Galaxy, and then the one in Minnesota, and they've been kind of like cutback type crosses, right, where they're able to, build on the wing and get crosses. And Kansas City are a side that still wants to play very expansive, play with wingers, and get crosses into the box for a Joveljic or a Mason Toye, who scored last night against Seattle from a cross as well. And so, I think our communication and our defending in the box when the ball gets into crossing positions is going to be key against this Kansas City side. And, you'd love to say, well, can we eliminate them even getting in those positions? Yeah, that would be great as well, because both the first 2 goals against the Galaxy were a little bit late, we're a little bit passive. The ball ends up in dangerous crossing positions, and we concede from it, And so, I just think the way Kansas City plays, they're going to have the ball in wide positions a lot. They're going to try to get deep, into the, their wing progressions, and get crosses into the box. And so, can we deal with those? Can we, eliminate them getting into those positions? And when they do, can we be on it? Can we be ready for it? Can we get bodies on bodies? Can we communicate when players are running through late between our midfielders and defenders to deal with the cutback crosses? Can we defend 1v1 well on the wings to eliminate the crosses even coming in? That's going to be my key to the match. Again, a little bit more of a tactical type one, and I think you're going a little bit more of an intangible type one.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so before tactics, before patterns of play, before any of that, right? I this is something that you always hear from Chris Little, since you're on the training pitch more often than I am, but I've heard plenty of times as well directly from assistant coach Chris Little, is earn the right to play. So what is that? What do we mean by earn the right to play? Is like, before you think about tactics or formations or patterns of play or any of the technical stuff of the game, like earn the right to play. Get stuck in a tackle, win second balls, do what you need to do to make sure that you as a group cement yourself in the game before you start thinking about anything else in terms of what you want to do offensively. Like, just make sure you establish your presence in the game in some way, shape, or form, because, unfortunately, we saw in that Galaxy match where it just felt a little sluggish. It wasn't the typical Rapids that we're so used to seeing, Drew, that, when we know what a good Rapid side looks like. And that was an instance where they hadn't necessarily earned the right to play because of how sluggish it felt. So now, coming off that experience against Galaxy, now taking it into Sporting Kansas City, I think that's going to be the big sticking point, and I'm sure Chris Little's going to be reiterating this to the group throughout the week, is earn the right to play. I think once you kind of cement your presence in the match, right? If it's Paxten going in for, albeit a foul, but establish your presence there, lay in a tackle there so that the other team knows that you're not messing around and you're always going to be like on their case. That I think that's going to sit in the Kansas City players' heads a little bit, and it makes them think twice a little bit when they're on the ball, or if they decide to press in certain moments. So earn the right to play if you're the Rapids. Do that, and I think you kind of get into the Kansas City players' heads a little bit and find yourself maybe in a psychological advantage. I mean, that's taking it to another level, honestly. But it's these little things. These are the little things sometimes that we talk about, Drew, that can make a difference in a match to establish yourself in a game and impose yourself in a game.
I think taking it psychologically to another level is very fair. I think that's kind of what you're trying to do, right? Because this is a team, Kansas City side, that are flirting with being eliminated from playoff contention, even though they're not technically, right? And even though we talk about, perhaps they'll play a bit more free, perhaps kind of like the LA Galaxy game, they'll be a little bit energized. If you do have a team like the Rapids come in and right from the start of the match play with energy, play with physicality, be aggressive, show, hey, we're still in the playoffs. We're still fighting for everything that we possibly can this season. Then if you're Sporting, it's like, oh my, this could be a long night, And so I think that's more than fair. And you want to do that from minute one. And when the soccer starts to be played, then you can show your perhaps superiority over them if you're on it for the day. But I think psychologically, absolutely earn the right to play. Do it from minute one, and perhaps the Sporting and continue to do it. And perhaps the Sporting Kansas City side will start to lose interest. Of course, you can't expect that, but you set the tone early in matches. It's not talked about enough anymore. You want to set the tone early in matches. The rest of the match becomes, I promise you, a little bit easier, as weird as it sounds.
Yeah. I mean, even if the Rapids don't get it going offensively as they like to on the ball, right? That's where we've heard Chris Armas mention multiple times where they're going to have to enjoy suffering a little bit. So finding those moments, finding those stretches where you're just kind of sitting, you're defending a little bit. You're going to have to get a little gritty with kind of like the knife between the teeth and just really get very, very gritty with it. And just, as I just mentioned, earn the right to play. Just establish your presence in the match in some way, shape, or form. And everything else will kind of figure itself out as you go, whether you're on the ball and playing creative football, or if you find a way to just kind of defend in stretches. And, as the Rapids like to do, go in transition, right? Just needing to just finding ways to get through the matches and the way they present themselves, right? Because every match is so different, especially, when you look at a Sporting Kansas City side who's possession-based, right? So you'd imagine the Rapids might have to find some moments to suffer, but we know this Rapids side can do it. We know they're very, very capable of doing it. And, I think to Minnesota, right, where they suffered and in certain stretches had to defend for a bit, but once they went in transition, Drew, my goodness, they can take advantage of teams. So, as we say over and over again, but I don't think it's hyperbole in terms of like this is a huge match. Like every match from here on out is basically a final for the Rapids, right? As it pertains to them trying to find a spot in the playoffs for 2025. And it's a difficult stretch. You know, you have teams that are fighting. Every team is fighting for something, Drew. Every team is fighting for something.
Absolutely.
So, big match. Very, very, very big match for between the two sides, Sporting Kansas City and the Colorado Rapids on Saturday. That's going to be August 30th. 6:30 p.m. Mountain Time at Children's Mercy Park. And, of course, you can watch that on MLS Season Pass on Apple TV. Anything else, Drew? Anything else that we had before we kind of put a capper on the show?
No, I don't think so. They're probably tired of listening to me. So
Probably.
Yeah.
If they're tired of listening to you, then they're sure as hell tired of listening to me.
No, they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be.
Man, I think that'll do it now. Yeah, quick one. Yeah, I think you're eager to get out of here.
You're like, please say more. No. Let's wrap it. Let's move on from LA Galaxy.
Yeah.
Let's go to Sporting Kansas City. Let's have a good week of preparation, a positive week of preparation, and go and get 3 points at a difficult place to play, but a fun place to play no less. And look at it as a playoff match. That's a lot easier said than done, but why not go in and embrace being the villains and disrupting everything that they bring on match day and enjoy 3 points.
Yeah, despite the result against the Galaxy, I feel like this Rapid side they're trending in the right direction. We saw the results against Minnesota, Atlanta. This Galaxy match felt like a misnomer. Like this was not our Rapid side that we're used to seeing. And the coaches and players would be the first to admit that. So
let's rebound from it.
Let's just rebound. We go, and again, we're fighting for a playoff spot, man. Yep. And we love playoffs around here. Yep. We know what that's like, and it's a fun environment to be a part of. So that'll do it. That'll do it for this episode of the Colorado Rapids podcast. So my thanks to the production crew, Rich and Miles, and of course my good friend and resident Rapids legend, Drew Moore. I have been your host, Mike Ravolo. That's going to do it for this episode. Everybody have a good week, and hopefully 3 points on Saturday against Sporting Kansas City. So have a good week, everybody.